Hey guys, welcome to the Beginner's Guide to Great Ones. So in this episode, I am going to be telling you everything about Great Ones that you need to know. We're not going to just focus on one animal, we're going to focus on all of the animals that have Great Ones currently. So currently, there are 9 Great Ones. The species that have Great Ones currently are white-tailed deer, red deer, black bear, moose, fallow deer, tahr, red fox, ring-necked pheasant, and mule deers. Let's talk about what a Great One is. A Great One has a whole new difficulty level, which is called the 10 Fabled. It's higher than a diamond, it's higher than a gold, it's higher than a silver. How do we get a Great One? Well, years ago when the Great One was first introduced into the game, there was a possibility that you could get them as initial spawn. That's no longer a thing. So essentially what you have to do is you have to grind for them. And during this episode, I will show you how to set up for a grind for a certain species. Grinding is pretty much the only way that you can get them now. The casual player who wants to hunt realistically, it's gonna be extremely hard for you to ever get a Great One. And the reason for this is because they want to make them hard. And you don't have to go for a Great One if you don't want a Great One. Let's talk about maps. Every single map in the game other than Virunga Savannah has the possibility now of getting a Great One on them. Again, during this episode, I will go through which map have which species on them. And the easiest way to do this is we'll start at the top of the list of maps. So the first one is Layton Lakes. So on Layton Lake, you can get the Great One white-tailed deer, the black bear, and the moose. So you can get 3 Great One species on Layton Lake. So on the beginner map that everybody gets, if you don't get any DLCs, you still have the possibility of getting a Great One. The second map that we are going to look at is Hirschfelden. You can get 4 Great Ones. You can get the fallow deer, the red deer, the ring-necked pheasant, and the red fox. In my personal opinion, throwing my personal opinion in there, Hirschfelden is not a great map for any of the Great Ones. However, you can still hunt 4 species on Hirschfelden. And again, it's another map that comes with the game. So essentially, if you don't buy any DLC, you can still hunt 7 Great Ones of the 9 species. So then the next map is Medved. And the only animal on Medved that is a Great One is the moose. There is no other Great Ones on Medved. And again, frankly, speaking from an experience, Medved is not a great map if you want to do Great One hunting for moose. There's so many zones and it's a nightmare. Okay, so then the next map to come out after that was Virunga Savannah. Now, as of today, there is no Great One species on Virunga Savannah. So then we move on to Parque Fernando. Okay, so on Parque, there is 2 Great One species. Again, we have red deer and mule deer. Again, in my personal opinion, take this as you will. I'm not going to tell you what map to hunt on or anything like that. I personally do not like hunting on Parque Fernando, sorry. And again, Yukon Valley has 2 Great Ones. It has the moose and the red fox. I'm going to be frank, I don't really play on Yukon Valley. I can't actually remember the last time I played on Yukon Valley. I can't comment on what the map is like for hunting because I really don't play on that map. Then we move on to Cuatro Colinas. Now, I will say, when Cuatro Colinas came out, this was my favourite map for a very long time. I loved this map. And on this map, you can get red deer and ring-necked pheasant. So as you can see, the last couple of maps, we've only really had like 2 species on them. These were the older maps that came out when the Great Ones were just starting to come out. This was in the time when Great Ones didn't really have fur variants. Then Silver Ridge Peaks. Now, Silver Ridge Peaks, honestly a top tier map. You can hunt black bear and mule deer on Silver Ridge Peaks. Mule deer being the newest Great One species that they have introduced. The map is very open, it's very easy to hunt at the drink zone. Again, then we move on to Tiawaro. Tiawaro is such a good map for fallow deer. So you can hunt, there's 3 species on Tiawaro. You can hunt fallow deer, tahr, and red deer. Now, if this is your first ever Great One grind, I would urge anyone to hunt the fallow deer on Tiawaro. And when I show you how to set up a map for a grind, we're going to use Tiawaro. It's so easy. And you'll see that when we set up the map. And then we move on to Rancho. Rancho, I feel like Rancho is one of those maps where you either love it or you hate it. But anyway, on Rancho, you can get the white-tailed deer, the ring-necked pheasant, and the mule deer again. So as you can see, the mule deer is appearing in a lot of these maps, which is great. And I will say again, the mule deers are amazing to hunt. I love the mule deers. The next map that we will be going to is Mississippi. We can hunt white-tailed deer and black bear. On the outside, Mississippi looks like a really good map. However, when you take into account the alligators spooking the animals, it's not a good map to hunt on. And then we move on to Revontuli. Now, Revontuli is probably, Revontuli and Layton are probably very similar in terms of white-tailed deer. They are both great for ease of seeing them. So on Revontuli, we have white deer and moose, the only 2 Great One species. And then the next map after Revontuli was New England Mountains. Sadly, New England Mountains flopped. It's great if you're doing normal hunting, but if you're trying to do Great One hunting, it is not a good map. I would not advise anyone to do any Great One grinding. However, this map does have 5 species, and they are white-tailed deer, black bear, moose, ring-necked pheasant, and red fox. It's very, very sad that it's not an easy map to hunt on because there is so many different species. Okay, and then we're getting to the end, guys. Sit tight, I promise. It gets better. So then we have Emerald Coast. Emerald Coast has 3 Great Ones: fallow deer, red deer, and red fox. If you are wanting to do a red fox grind, do the red fox grind on Emerald Coast. And at some point I will come out with a guide for the red fox. What I'm going to do is, this is going to be just an altogether like broad episode. I will come out with separate episodes for all of the Great One species so that we can go more in depth with them. However, red fox, it's not an easy grind. I'm going to be honest, I haven't actually finished my Great One grind for a red fox. It has took a long time and it's not a fun grind. I'm going to tell you that now. So then, after Emerald Coast, we move on to Sundarbatan. It's probably the most well put together map that there was. There is one map that has overtaken it, in my personal opinion. You only got 1 species on Sundarbatan, which is the tahr. Tahr grinding is not for the faint-hearted. It's not for the beginner. Tahrs do not have a drink zone. And trying to set up for them up in the mountains is next to impossible. Especially now that you can't place a tent right on top of their need zone. I don't enjoy grinding for the tahr. I do grind for them, but I'm going to be frank, I don't even have a setup for them right now. So then we move on to Saltwagen Park. Saltwagen Park only has 2 species that are Great Ones on it, which are the ring-necked pheasant and the red fox. Saltwagen Park is also a map that is only designed for small animals. There is only level 1 and level 2 animals on there throughout the map. Again, red fox, you can grind red fox on Saltwagen. There is a method to it, and like I said, when I get into the individual animals, I will show how we set up for them individually. And then we move on to the final map that came out on June 17th, which is Asiki Ridge. No, Askey Ridge, sorry. So, Askey Ridge has 5 Great One species. We have the black bear, the moose, the ring-necked pheasant, white-tailed deer, and the mule deer. And I have to say, Askey Ridge is the most amazing, well thought out, well made map I have seen since Sundar Bhutan. The mule deers on Askey Ridge are absolutely perfect for the beginner. If you want to do a beginner grind anywhere, either pick up fallow deer on Tiawaro or do mule deer on Askey Ridge. But rather than set up on an individual map just in this episode, what I'm thinking is we're going to do subsequent episodes after this of all of the species, and I'm going to set up on every single one of those species so you can see where my zones are. And I think that's what we'll do. Alright guys, well, I hope you enjoyed watching this, and like I said, keep your eyes open. This is going to be a whole series, and I will be back with another